Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are you all doing? This is MC. I'm standing in for Mad Dodge. I appreciate Jensen was here, and he started the stream for me, and he's leaving it up and operational for myself. I have Atema with me today, and I also have Sharardi with me at the moment.
I'm so bored. Save me.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, and I appreciate we coming up. The reason I'm doing this is basically Mad Dodge is still quite a bit under the weather, and
he's got the baby flu, or
yeah,
is that the man flu?
I don't know if it's a man flu. I don't know if it's a baby flu. Maybe it's just a ANCAP flu. I don't know.
Yeah, let's call it the ANCAP fool.
Flu. I'm sorry.
That was a definite Freudian slip there, boy.
That was not what I was intending. But then again, I'm not going to take it back either. No. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. All right. First of all, is ever since Bernie Sanders jumped into the race and announced he was going to run again, right? There's all this swirling around, and once again, you're seeing signs of feel the burn and everything else. Now, I'm not here to ask questions about whether or not you think this candidate can win or that candidate can win or anything else. But my question is why are people trying to handicap a race, a presidential race, that is still, for all intents and purposes, 2 years away?
Because they've been trying to handicap it since President Donald J. Trump became president.
Oh, no, they've been stifling it longer than that. They've been stifling it since the Tea Party caucus started gaining momentum. They discovered, no, seriously, look at it. They've been doing it since then. That's why we kept creating all these different forums and everything kept moving from location to location.
And I agree with you there. I think that's happening, but I think it's a broader trend than that. And the reason I'm saying that is back in the day, when I realized that, everyone rolls their eyes when the old man goes back in the day, back in my day.
Oh, well, you're only 50, and the youngest one here is only 31. So you're 54.
Yeah, I'm 55. Thank you.
Aw, so
don't
cute.
Cheat me a year.
He's earned it, damn it.
All right, but early in the 70s, right, you had the earliest primaries were basically March, right? And then you would see everything, the electioneering would begin just before March, generally around in February. And that's when all the people would be ramping up, and the things would be, people would be putting ads up and things like that. Okay. And what I've seen is a slow creep, and it was a creep again and again and again and this became a competition between the committees in the various states, specifically to, I want to be first. All right. It was always the first caucus was always Iowa, and then of course the first primary was always New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, it hasn't been that way for forever.
Well, and since that time, what I've seen is this creep back further and further and further and further of moving these primaries up as states started to vie for saying, wait a minute, in order for my state to be relevant, all right, in this primary, I want to have it earlier. And of course, everybody's tried to jump over New Hampshire, so New Hampshire would then change theirs further, and then Iowa, of course, would do the same to change theirs earlier. And it was this race that actually went so far as to there was 1 year where they were proposing actually starting the election the year prior in the primaries. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, because it's because of this what they've done that has created the kind of dynamics that are happening where it's never ending campaigning. And while this affects, government overall, like the presidency and obviously the Senate to a degree, the real effect is on the House, right? I mean, if you've got to start your election process, your re-election process, all right, at the beginning of the year, that entire year, you're not even worried about what you're doing as a House Representatives, are you?
Yeah, no, you're busy spending most of your time worrying about your next election. That's been kind of the problem that some people have been saying with the 6-year limits and stuff like this, and the 4-year and everything, is that half of every politician's slot is them reelecting. It's campaigning. I mean, just look at Trump. He only gets to spend what, half of each. He's already out having to do reelections. I mean, okay, I blame the 24-hour news cycle for why we have such long election cycles now. I really do. I do. The reason they're starting the handicap now is because they are trying to not admit defeat while admitting defeat.
Well,
no, really, I think that's the way they're looking at it. I mean, if you look at the verbiage they're using and stuff, this is like they're saying, "Oh, we're just assuming that Trump is going to win."
Well, right, but I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen between now and when the election takes place. For crying out loud! I mean,
he could drop dead.
He could drop dead. All right. We could end up in a real war. Heaven forbid. Right. We could get an asteroid could hit and a major disaster. Right. Could happen. A major earthquake or major disaster. There are so many things that could happen between now and the next election, when the election cycle begins. But I agree with you that the 24-hour news cycle has exacerbated things, but I really think it was this race to be first by the states that has gotten a lot of this stuff out of control. Because while things can happen so much quicker now, technology has moved so much sooner. I mean, let's be honest. The reason the primaries were initially in the March timeframe to begin with was strictly because it was hard for candidates to move from place to place to place initially to be able to campaign on a broad scale.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, back when we were, especially we were doing horse and buggy before we had an actual highway system.
Right. Well, even when it was trains were ubiquitous, it was very difficult. I mean, but today, do you have that problem? I mean, people are crisscrossing the country. I mean, Trump was actually doing 3 rallies a day in different states across the country. We don't need this anymore.
But look at the way that you were bitching about 6 inches of snow earlier today.
Okay.
It's too cold outside.
Yeah, what does that have to do with the election, Sherardi? I'm kind of missing something here.
I'm just bitching at you because you think 6 inches of snow is a lot of snow.
I live in a desert. I think an inch of snow is a lot of snow here.
Yeah, I still think it's funny.
But back to this. So I think that if what we need to do, if we were really serious about fixing some of this crap, all right? I mean, let's go on to something else. For example, everyone talks about how much it costs, right? I mean, how expensive it is to run these campaigns, how expensive it is to do all of these and run all these ads and do all this stuff, right? Well, okay, I understand that. But the reason it's so expensive is you've got those ads going 2 years out. You're trying to pay for your ads to get your name recognition and get everything out there 2 years worth, right? Or an entire year worth, basically, before you even start an actual primary or a caucus. So, of course, these things are more expensive. You got to do more ads at more times. And the reason for that, I know people will say, well, they would just spend the same amount of ads. It's just the same amount of money. No, the biggest problem. I'm sorry.
It's all kickbacks. It's all fucking kickbacks, MC.
Well, yeah, but the reason that they're spending,
okay.
I understand that point. But the thing is that the reason the ads are like this, the reason the ads cost so much more money over the long term has to do with the fact that you're trying to stay current with what's currently going on. You're trying to strike on an issue while that issue is hot. But that issue, the issues that are hot today, let's be quite frank, they're not going to be hot a year from now. What we're talking about as issues in the upcoming election are not going to be, are very likely not going to be issues in the upcoming election. It's just the issue it's the issue du jour today, right? You disagree?
Well, okay, some of the social issues, yes. We're going to see those as the cause du jour. We've always called them the cause du jour. There is, however, I would say at least 4 issues that always resonate. They are things that have always been issues for Americans. That is immigration, taxes, trade, and the economy. Those 4.
Well, the economy for sure. Immigration actually fades in and out now and then. I think. What were the other 2?
Economy and taxes.
Taxes is always a big one, yeah.
And trade.
And they kind of waffle between them, but what I mean by that is, I mean, importance, the level of importance and so forth, goes up and down as a result of that. And I do agree with you. All right, but let's be honest, on those issues, with the exception of immigration, which is going to be, I mean, we're going to be waiting through the courts. There's going to be court decisions again and again and again coming up in this cycle, right? That's going to be having a major effect on the immigration cycle. Of those 4, though, we don't know where the baseline is going to be. We expect the economy to be good. All right, will it? We don't know. We expect people to be happy about the taxes right now. Are they going to be? We don't know. All right, because we don't know what taxes are going to be coming up in the next cycle for Congress. We haven't seen any of that yet. We haven't seen any legislation being pushed through Congress right now. Now, granted, it's going to be interesting to see how that does play out. All right, but we still don't know what's going to be a major issue, I think, by the time the actual election times rolls around. And because the election cycle is so long, okay, each specific issue and relevance as it waxes and wanes, right, causes people to have to change and modify all of their ads. And so you have to keep these ads going continuously. You can't just drop off, because at any point in time, if you drop off and you go non-existent, you're done. You are finished. Now, Trump has the bully pulpit in this case. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, but that's not necessarily true. You don't necessarily have to do advertising. It depends on how you want to keep yourself relevant. I mean, you can't say that Trump has spent a crap ton of money keeping himself relevant in terms of, popular opinion in the public eye. He hasn't been running ads since 2012 or since 2000. I think.
But politicians that can do that, to be honest, are somewhat rare. Trump is one of them. All right, because of his style and also the technology that he has to utilize allows for that. All right.
Well, I would say a lot of the right is doing that now. I mean, I think part of the reason we're seeing the handicapping now is because the left has to admit that the right owns social media.
You think the right owns social media? Because I would disagree with that
entirely. Oh, absolutely. Why do you think they keep knuckling down on it and suppressing and censoring and suppressing and censoring?
Because it exists.
Because no matter what they do, they can't suppress people interacting. They can't suppress. Hopefully, Sharada comes back. They can't suppress or stop the people they don't want conversing and creating change in the political paradigm. They don't want them to be able to speak, so they keep coming with more stringent ways to create that filter to stop you from speaking. Right? It's absolutely the right is winning the information war in that sense. Absolutely.
Well, I think that there's a dynamic there. I think that I worry about being in a bubble in that regard, because I see, a lot of the other side on that. All right. And I don't see us necessarily winning this. All right. Or when I say we, kind of a euphemistically. All right. Obviously I am a conservative and in no uncertain terms, and I'm going to remain that way. Right. But the idea that the left doesn't have any kind of power, any kind of clout to do things on social media, I think is a bit of a misnomer. I think that in a lot of ways they control social media, and that the fact that the right even has a presence they can't erase is what they're trying to do. I think they're just acting in the same way they've always acted, which is they've always gone out of their way to stifle people and stifle conservatives from having any kind of platform.
Well,
so I'm not as I just want to say that I'm not as sure as you are that the social media is a right wing, that the right is winning the meme wars in the social media.
Okay, yes, the left is in the position of power, but they're in the position of power and they cannot slow the conveyance of information from the right. They are actively attempting to do so, and it is failing because there are too many people outside of the left that just want to get the information. They don't care who it comes from. They just want that information. You know what I'm saying? So they're willing to go to the extra trouble of building a site and putting their own money and capital into it. There's too many people willing to make money, seeing the gap, that are going to fill it. There's no way for the left to keep the control they think they have. Now, I'm not saying they don't have clout in the current situation. I'm not saying they don't have power. What I'm saying is they are creating a paradigm where it looks like they have more power than they actually do.
And here, let me give you just an example of why I disagree with your assessment that they have more power than they actually do. Now, I do believe that they believe they have more power than they actually do. I'll agree with that. All right, but their power, if you all you have to do is go down and take a look at Juicy. All right, all you have to do is take a look at the Juicy, what Juicy did, and how fast and how broad based, all right, his attack reached before his story, all right, started falling apart, when the evidence of his story falling apart was right there in front of everybody. I mean, even Tim Pool was saying this there's something wrong here.
Well, I'm like, you talking two white guys in Chicago wearing fucking MAGA hats? Are you serious? Really? Just think about how did they fucking vote, and how do they always vote? They have voted that way for a goddamn century.
Well,
really?
The last time I saw somebody with a freaking sticker on his car that said MAGA, they basically dragged him out of the car and beat him.
Right?
I mean, that was all over YouTube, if you remember correctly. Right?
That's what I'm like. I'm like, really? You're gonna tell me there's a pair of white guys walking around with MAGA hats on in Chicago in the middle of the night? Yeah, right, dude. And then the other side of it is, okay, you are a gay man walking around an upper echelon area at 2 o'clock in the morning on an odd day. Nobody's gonna say you weren't at a bar. They're gonna say you were going out and looking for a guy. You were looking for a hooker.
Well, I mean, he was in the thing. I mean, his story was obviously falling apart. Let's be honest. But the problem was that the press
implication left of him wandering around like that is he was like either inebriated wandering or he was out looking for a piece of ass, dude. That's right.
But I agree with you. But take a look at what the response was on how far it went and how quickly it went and it spread. All right, throughout social media. All right, and helped along by social media, when everybody and anybody who had, more than 2 brain cells to rub together would look at that story, read it, and go, okay, there's an issue here. And yet you didn't see that being portrayed by anybody in the media. You see what I'm saying? Their ability to reach people quickly in a broad base, all right, and have a powerful message. And I'm going to say something else about this. Okay. Now, his story was nonsense, okay? But one of the things that actually saved Chicago from being burned to the ground, and I truly believe this, was the fact that he was so stupid that he had that fake attack happen to him, okay, where he thought it would all be captured on a camera when the camera was turned around backwards. right? If he would have said, there's the footage, there's the camera, there's this, it would have been portrayed, all right, as he got beaten up by these guys, all right, and they were in hoods and they were masked and you couldn't tell who they were, all right. If he'd have done it right, there would have been protests. I guarantee you, there would have been protests in downtown Chicago protesting what happened to him. If they would have had video footage of it.
Oh yeah.
And that was his intent. His intent was to get that footage in there. All right. I'm just trying to point out the power that these guys still have, the power the media still has in the social media. They look how fast they blew up the Covington, the Covington kids at the Lincoln Memorial. They blew that all out of proportion rapidly. All right. To the point where people were sending these kids, celebrities, well-known celebrities, were basically tweeting death threats to these kids. All right. And it's still to this day, there are people who believe, that still walk around believing that those kids surrounded a tiny group of Native Americans and got in their face. When you know that isn't true. You know that isn't even there. But, and I want to swing this back now to the elections, okay? One of the things that this causes because of this elections is you've got to keep now, like I said, your name in the news. All right. So how are they going to do this? Now, I will agree with you that the ability for the media to control the narrative is not nearly as total as it was, back in the 70s and even in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s, it was amazing.
Right.
It was amazing how much control they had over the media in the 80s. There was no alternative. They cracked down on pirate radio by that point too, so there was nobody out there.
Right.
It wasn't until Rush.
Well, and so there was, their control was their ability to drive a narrative, to control the narrative, to set the narrative and go for it, has been broken to a large extent. But it still doesn't mean that they're not a dangerous and powerful force to be reckoned with, especially when they're controlled by people that are quite frankly deranged. When you see the people on MSNBC and you see the people on CNN and ABC and CBS, all right, and even some of the ones on Fox, and you listen to them, they're deranged. They're not talking reality. They're talking wishful thinking. All right? They're talking out their ass. Let's be quite frank. I mean, for crying out loud, back in the 70s at least, if a freaking reporter would have said, "I believe that this airliner disappeared because it was swallowed up in a black hole," okay, that person would never be seen on public airwaves again. All right?
Instead, we have resist too much.
He wouldn't be an anchor, an everyday anchor on one of the cable news shows. He wouldn't. And if people are wondering what I'm referring to, I'm talking about Don Lemon. All right. When the Malaysian airliner disappeared, he theorized, it was his theory that a black hole swallowed it up. And he said that on public, on air, right? He was totally serious.
I forgot about that.
So when it comes to the election, though, you would hope that people would be able to differentiate, but I really wonder. I really do wonder whether or not they pay, because Americans still have the bad habit of not paying attention to the elections, more or less. All right, and just going with the flow and letting the things become established, right, when they go with the flow, to the point where they don't question anything until it's directly affecting them, until they see it directly affecting them.
But you do realize that only 10% of the American population engaged in the revolution, right?
Well, I think it was closer to 30, but I mean, the numbers are hard to. The numbers are hard to. I mean, we're making estimates, to be honest, from just diary things and
Well, that's
so
what
forth.
I was going with the 10% to start the revolution thing.
Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, I would agree with that. Yeah. That's
So
probably true.
it's more like you got to pay attention to who's doing what. Um, but I agree. Okay, yes, I agree. They are in that position. However, that stranglehold is obviously decreasing because they're handicapping themselves 2 years out.
Okay. Outlaws in the chat. Hey, Outlaw, if you want to jump on in here, feel free to jump on in. We're not talking specifics today, at least not at the moment. I do have something later on that I want to a graph that I want to ask about.
Honestly, I think the problem is we have the progressives and then we have the rest of the left. And I think that's the problem, is that the progressives have decided that everybody who thinks that they're left, they are progressive. There's like, it's really weird to talk about the Democratic Party and think about liberals and talk about them as liberals, because there's nothing liberal in my mind about them. I have a hard time using the word liberal to describe what is now the left. I think the progressives are a small amount of people largely in positions of power.
Well, but they're getting the support of the other people, right?
No, really, they aren't. That's the thing. Like, we've already figured out, what is it, the changetheterms.org. There are specific groups that do targeted campaigns to make the public, the media, whomever they're supposed to be working against, to create an appearance of there being much more of them than there actually are. There aren't that many people actually in control of all that shit.
Well, if that's the case, then how is it that when you can see these people getting elected, these are the leaders that they're electing?
Because our world has been reduced to sound bites and 3-minute ads. You can't really blame that on the left or the right. That was entirely just a side effect of over commercializing the 80s, when we were throwing
it's a side effect
ads and we just and then
it's also a side effect of video. Okay.
Well, yeah, I was going to say we created 24 news hour cycle or 24-hour news cycles, and then we had social media involved in that as well. And it's, everything's just gotten too shortened. We have a short attention span. And you're absolutely right, Bear Dog. The SJW progressive shit is not brand new. It's called cultural Marxism. It's been around for about a century, as we know it. And a lot of what you see going on with politics, especially from people in political seats writing legislation right now, in conjunction with the media, are verbatim steps out of Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals. This isn't anything new. You're absolutely correct. It's just the first time a lot of America has ever been exposed to it, because up until now, this kind of Marxism has been kept very, very quiet.
I think people have been generally ignoring it, and to be quite frankly, I think that they're still to a large extent ignoring it.
Well, yeah, wouldn't you? What's the incentive?
You're asking the wrong person there, Adema, because I've never ignored it.
And I'm talking about from the regular person's perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, all right, but then again, I'm not always. It's not always easy for me to put myself into the average person's perspective, because I don't share a lot of that commonality there. It's sometimes, I can step back at times and listen to people talk about things. I've got a good friend in Silver Springs, all right, that ended up being he went with me to the desert, all right, when we got ordered back on active duty. And I'd been out about 8 years. He'd been actually out about 12, all right, when he was ordered back on active duty and got sent over there. And, he would talk to me, and he had that perspective where he wasn't paying attention to politics and so forth. And I would listen to him, and I would listen to what he was saying. But that doesn't mean that's a far cry from saying I understand that viewpoint, because I've never had that. Okay, to me that's kind of an alien perspective because, like I said, I've always been this kind of nerd. I've always been a political junkie nerd. All right, pretty much my entire life.
Oh, well, yeah, no, but I'm saying the average person, MC, the average Joe Schmo walking down the street, the instant they start saying, fucking, hey, no, I don't agree with that. Um, what is the response they generally get? They get a bunch of vitriol. So the average person that comes across that bunch of vitriol from that coordinated attack of harpies that go around looking for people, they just tune out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they tune out, or they shy away and they walk away. They don't want to deal with it.
Well, yeah, because that's the average human being's response to that. They look at you, go, okay, fuck, you guys are fucking retarded, and oh no, it's retarded, and they walk away.
And maybe this comes from my military, my military experience, but ceding the field is never a good idea.
But the average American, that isn't ceding the field to them. That's a crazy shithead on the internet, or that's a crazy person with funny hair with a sign. I could just walk around them and the problem's gone.
Yeah, but I understand that, but is the problem gone? Let's be honest. No. I mean, all it did was get worse. I mean, you have to be able to see that. I mean, they have to be able to notice. The average person isn't stupid, I don't think. All right, they tend to be lazy, but they're not stupid. They can see that these things are happening. Now, when the media was in total control of the narrative, it's much more understandable. But in today's society, they're not. All right, there's plenty of other outlets out there for you to gain information from and glean information from, right? And yet, are we moving in that direction? To me, it seems like all that it's done is there are some people that have moved more to the right. I'll be honest, from my perspective. All right, the country, but what it's creating is there is no center anymore, and you're ending up with the bifurcation that you're starting to see, which is one of the reasons why I do fear a civil war happening in the country going forward.
I don't know. It looks like the right has pretty much stayed where it is for the longest time. I think what you're seeing is you're seeing the left diversify, and it's making the right look like they're moving farther right. Because if you look at the values that were important, no, just look at, hold on, real quick. If you go look at the, I want to say it's Gallup, or it's one of the ones, Pew, somebody that's one of the larger companies, they do the annual American values.
Mm-hmm.
Where people,
I think Gallup does it.
America has been center right for like 75 years.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
Questions individually, you know what I mean?
Right. No, I hear what you're saying, but my point wasn't when I said that the right is gaining. I didn't mean that the right was moving further to the right. What I meant from an ideological perspective, what I meant is from a numbers perspective.
Oh, okay.
There are far more people willing to claim that they're conservative now, or even Republican. All right, that I have seen. All right, on a broader scale than previously. It used to be that you would see about 30 to 40% would say that they were progressive / Democrat. All right, then you would see another close to 60%. Well, not quite that high, but about 50%, almost half, between 45 and 50% would say that they were independent. And then you would end up with the 25 or so left would be considered conservative, would call themselves conservative. And now what you're seeing is a good 30% say they're conservative, 30% saying that they're liberal, right? And the moderates are shades of one or the other. All right. And they tend to say, well, I'm definitely not a liberal, and I kind of move over. So you're seeing only 40% or even another 30% really that goes across in what they would say, what we'd call the middle ground. So I've seen it from that standpoint. So that's what I was referencing.
Oh, okay. I'm so curious what Bear Dog calls a Nazi, because I mean, I guess we can go dig up the bones. We could punch him. I don't see the point.
It is a question.
Can I just?
I'm glad that she's back and she's feeling so much better lately. It's amazing how much better she's feeling lately. She's she's so feisty. Well, it would be interesting to see
I was
what
gonna
you
say,
would
can
call
we
it
just
agnostic.
punch the retarded people? Can we just punch those ones? You know, the ones that are like, "Hey, you can't say that," and the other ones that are going, "Hey, you can't say that," and then
Well,
they piss at each other. It's like, no, can I just punch both of you, please? Because you're both doing it.
I would like to point out that that would involve an awful lot of punching. And are you really sure your knuckles could take punching pretty much every single person you meet? If you're comfortable with that, then good luck to you.
I know, right? I'm gonna punch myself too because I've said, "Hey, fuck you."
You know, there was a male game where that was kind of a game between males. You know that, Jensen, right? Where there was the old Irish standoff and everything that used to be part of these things, right?
True, true.
Did you ever play Knuckles? We played Knuckles. Fuck.
Oh, yes.
Then nobody played Knuckles against me, man. I got bones, man. Check that out. I got like bony knuckles. Hey, nobody ever. Hey, you want to play Knuckles? Sure, let's play. No, I ain't playing. I'm good.
But no, I just look at this stuff for the way that the reason I started is for people that are just coming in. And the question I was asking is because of I think that we are handicapping these elections and going into these elections way too freaking soon, and it's having a negative effect on our society overall.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
we need to restrict the. I think we really do need to have some kind of legislation that says no primary before like March. There's no reason why there has to be a primary before March. All right,
Well,
and they can, huh?
It's all money.
Well,
They
right.
start
Well,
now so they can make money.
if
This
you
is
want
all
to take
about
the
how
money,
big a power they can get.
if you want to take the money out of politics, isn't that one of the ways?
Well, that's the thing. It's how much of our political system these days is anything but money.
Well, okay. So
Me, dude, look at how rich some of these people come out of politics, dude.
oh no, I fully agree with you. But I think that one of the things that you could do, anything you could do to reduce the money in politics is going to be a benefit. And it doesn't have to be saying, well, you can only have this amount or that amount or whatever, some artificial, a limit to it. What you have to do is sit up there and take away the things that create that kind of a dynamic. And one of those would be, okay, let's take this back to a reasonable time frame for these elections. And that right there will reduce the amount of time and also reduce the amount of cost and money going in and out of these elections. And it will give these lazy SOBs in the legislature, and I'm going to be real blunt with you, I think they're lazy SOBs in the legislature, all right, a kick in the pants to do their frickin' jobs instead of punting everything, and punting everything to the bureaucracy.
But if they just punt it, then they can come out looking like a good person and they can get more money.
Well, okay, so let's take away that incentive, like I said.
Well, sure. The problem is that the Supreme Court has already ruled that your money is your voice.
No, I understand that. I'm not going to argue that. But if you shrink the amount of time, then the amount of money that's necessary, all right,
sure.
has to shrink. Okay.
Oh, sure, but that's not going to happen.
Oh, I think it would. Well, them doing that probably won't happen, but it would be something that should be looked at. It's something that should be overall or around the country. It should be being called for, because this nonsense of going on in endless campaigning. I mean, we as Americans have to put a stop to that. All right, we are electing leaders that aren't doing any other job other than campaigning because of what we've done with these cycles, and it's time to rein that back into something reasonable. So I think that they should make it so that the second or third week in March is the first caucus and the first primary. It can't be before that. I really do think that we could get something like that on a national level and have that pushed through. Now, would it be easy to do? No, but it wouldn't, because politicians are addicted to cash, all right? But it is something that would at least help put, get people back in charge of their government and get them something focused on to try and fix at least a small little thing, all right, to where I don't have to turn on a radio somewhere and immediately hear a freaking campaign commercial and I'm 2 friggin' years out.
Well, they were announcing the ramp up for the election days after the midterms finished. So I think it's going to be a natural process that happens. I don't think we're going to need any legislation. Thinking about it, MC. You know what's going to happen?
What?
Voter fatigue. Campaign fatigue is going to happen. They are suddenly, it's not going to be worth it for them to do these rallies anymore. It's not going to be worth it for them to do the campaign financing or fundraising and stuff anymore like they're doing.
Yeah,
People just are going to stop showing.
The problem with that is that goes into the malaise of just not caring about who gets what, when, and where, and it fuels that pox on both houses, and it doesn't matter, and that whole malaise.
Okay, but
that is another aspect of our society that really is causing issues.
Yeah, but what you're suggesting sounds rather fascistic, because then you're telling super PACs that have lots of money and other groups that have lots of money and have centered an entire business around campaigns and how they work. If you legislate that, you're going to have
all I'm legislating is that a primary can't take place before March. That's all I'm legislating.
Yeah, and that's going to have a negative effect, because you're saying you aren't allowed to have a campaign until this time. Some fucking politician's going to come up and say, "This is my free speech. You can't do this."
I didn't say you couldn't have a campaign before then. I said you can't have a primary before then, because the people's attention spans are going to be on the primaries, not before then. And if you limit that, yeah, you can be out there campaigning, but nobody's going to be paying attention to it early on. I'm not trying to say that they can't campaign. I'm saying that the primaries have to start in March rather than starting in January.
I still don't think they're going to do it, because they had a hard time putting in the requisite they have now. I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Things are going to be easy. I'm not saying it would be easy to do. I'm just saying that I think that doing something like that would have a positive effect, especially over time. It wouldn't instantaneously change things, but it would change things slowly over time, where people go, okay, there's no reason to go campaigning like that. And in fact, somebody that starts a campaign too early then would probably get a lot of negative outcome, because people are like, why are you campaigning so early, you frickin' moron?
Well, I mean, maybe not. I mean, really, if we want to be honest, they've been campaigning since 2017. I mean, let's be real.
I realize that this cycle's a bit different because of Trump. Let's be honest. Trump is a freaking threat to the entire establishment, and the establishment is working in overdrive trying to get rid of him.
Well, okay. I'm going to tell you right now. Everybody keeps talking about how the polls were so wrong and the polls were so wrong. It wasn't that the polls were wrong. It's that everybody reading the statistical data for the polls wasn't paying attention to the real, the actual numbers. They were looking at the promoted numbers. All of the numbers showed Hillary losing favor, multiple point valuations monthly from June through to the election. So I think we need to look at the polls, but we need to remember to look at the overall numbers on stuff. And I think with the Democrats, okay, now have you noticed that the Republicans haven't started anything? They haven't started a push for campaigns of any sort for the primaries yet?
That's because for all intents and purposes, no one's willing to go against, God Emperor Trump.
No, I'm talking like state-based.
Because I think people are just waiting around to see how things are going to flesh out. I don't think that I think they're holding their powder more than anything else. The thing is in order for in order for you to start campaigning, one of the problems with, and this is, I think, true regardless of what party's in charge, right? Or what party is in office, is when whoever is the president of the United States, whoever party he represents, he becomes the big pulley, bully pulpit master. He's the one who's start campaigning for them and so forth. And because Trump hasn't, good morning, Will Shot, or good afternoon or the evening, I'm sorry.
I'm here to fuck your shit up. What's up? I'm Bear Dog, and I'm here to fuck shit up. What's going on?
Well, I was just
talking. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say what you're talking about. Okay, so they're starting this crazy primary shit now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But back when Trump was elected, they started that shit 2 years before too, and everybody was bitching about fucking voter fatigue at that point. This is something that both parties, whatever party lost the presidential election, they go and do this. This is every cycle. You have whatever the losing party is. They're the ones that start the 2 years out to get more money to go into their coffers. We've seen this time and again, right?
I think that's true to an extent, but you got to remember when Trump was.
You got to remember, it's the Democrats. It's only the Democrats. It's no one else but the Democrats and the liberals.
You have not been paying attention to me. I haven't been railing exclusively against the Democrats. You can even ask.
You just don't know. You just don't know. It's always the Democrats and the liberals. You just don't know. Okay.
No, they are. They are the biggest problem. I'm not going to.
They are the biggest problem, even though.
But what we're talking about in this case is. When in 2016, what did you have? The circumstances were you were going to get a new president regardless of what party. Okay? Because
man, I would go for Mitt Romney right now. I'm high on some painkillers too. Let me tell you what, like fuck yeah. I would go for Mitt Romney right now. I would go for that giant meteor right now.
I was just, what is it, his sleepy voice? Because Mitt Romney always sounded like he should read kids' books to me. Like
I didn't like Mitt Romney. I didn't much care for John McCain. I didn't care for any of the fucking Republicans I like Bobby Jindal to an extent. He was all right. And then he started talking a lot. Kind of like Sarah Palin. I love John McCain. It was great. And then Sarah Palin started talking, and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna go kill myself.
And I had the opposite reaction. John McCain was speaking, and I had like this vitriolic knee-jerk, I can't fucking stand you response to him. And Sarah Palin, I was like, oh shit, bitch can shoot a gun and she's got a bunch of kids. I'm all right. Like, it was totally just different perspective.
Oh, the left is bullshit. Oh my god. Let me tell you something that grinds my gears. I'm sorry, MC. I'm taking over like AIDS because gay people have AIDS.
We know that.
Gay people have AIDS. Okay.
Hey, did you know? Britain released a study. It's confirmed lesbians are fatter than every other demographic in Western culture.
I guess I don't know, man. Anyways.
Well, you know why that is. It's very simple, right? Because lesbians aren't getting chased by men, so therefore they don't have to run as fast. That's why gay men are always so fit, because other men are chasing them, so they got to run faster.
Yeah, but gay men always get fucked at the gym. There's always an opportunity for sex at the gym.
Which is true.
But no, everybody acts like SJWs and anti-SJWs are so new. It's like, nah, you guys. It's like that poll Sophane did, right? I don't know if you saw it. I didn't participate in the poll because I'm not technically anti-SJW. I'm anti-extremism. That's what I am.
I'm anti-SJW. I took part in that poll.
I do not like I don't like extremism in any form. I don't give a fuck what it is, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's like, well, SJWs ruined Star Wars. No, it didn't. SJW was there when Star Wars began.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Star Trek. you wouldn't have Uhura if it wasn't for SJW bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree with that, except for that Star Wars didn't have SJW stuff in the original. There was no SJW. It was just.
Are you fucking kidding? Are you fucking kidding? Leia? Princess Leia. That wasn't as they had to. George Lucas fought for Carrie Fisher to get paid equal to Harrison Ford. That was SJW. That was progressive.
That wasn't in the movie, though.
Yeah, that's not the theme. That's not the theme of the movie, though.
And then you had a black guy playing who was Judas, and then you had Boba Fett. Thought he was a black guy. I don't fucking remember. I don't care. But
I don't think we ever saw Boba Fett.
But SJW progressive shit has been in movies and film and TV forever.
You have different social themes. There's a difference between a social theme and SJW. All right, and this is where I would disagree with you. In the case of Star Wars, okay, what did you have with the first Star Wars? You have an extremely strong female character. Let's be perfectly frank, and she was played as a strong female character, but she wasn't the overriding strong female character.
But what's wrong if it was?
Well,
who gives a fuck if it was?
As soon as you create any character, whether it's male or female, all right, and they become overly or uber powerful and overriding, they become what's called a Mary Sue, and it's bad story writing.
Are you gonna piss and moan about the old John Wayne films where it was just John Wayne being John Wayne? Have
you seen? Well, okay, we probably haven't known this, right?
Bam.
But people complained about many of his films being overly John Wayne, and that he could never be hurt. They complained about that excessively in certain films of his.
So they're doing the same thing, that if a woman was too powerful, if a man... Then what the fuck is the problem?
The problem is that
because nobody likes a Mary Sue. Nobody likes a Mary Sue. It kills a plot. And that's the problem. It is, and SJWs
I don't know. I think
grabbed SJWs have grabbed the Mary Sue concept and they've thrown it out there and said this is feminism. Now the problem is,
I'm a feminist.
But it doesn't make any sense. But no, if you look at the feminist archetype they put up in like a comic book character or a movie archetype,
okay, I'm waiting.
When you put that in there, it kills the rest of the plot, and it makes feminism look like they're exaggerating how awesome a woman naturally is by putting too many powers into one character.
I don't know. I thought Uhura did a very good job on Star Trek, and they got shit after shit after shitstorm when fucking William Shatner kissed her.
No, to be honest, they didn't.
Yes, they did, dude. Yes, they did.
Scotty, it was Scotty. It wasn't Kirk. Anyway,
whatever. Black and a white, a black. It was interracial kissing. Whatever. It was a shit fit.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I remember when that happened, and the idea that people were saying that it was going to turn into a shit fit was because the media all claimed it was going to be a shit fit, and it never happened. There weren't protests in the streets. There wasn't a bunch of people.
Leonard Nimoy had to do the same thing, and persuade Gene Roddenberry to pay her the same wage.
We're not talking about the pay. We're talking about the storyline.
I know, but you guys act like progressive shit has never existed before.
No,
and it's the end of the world.
Okay.
It is the end of the world right now. With
I've never. That's not to say that the social dynamics haven't been there. All right, it's not an SJW.
Well, without progression, where in the fuck are we going to go? We're going to sit there and trying to shift gears, and we're stuck in the mud, and we're still shifting gears, and we can't get out of the mud.
Yeah, but one of the things that you got to be careful of is when you sit up there and start stripping on those gears because you're trying to run up that freaking hill, is you got to be careful of running off the cliff. And we're a lot closer to running off that cliff than you seem to take credit or believe that give credit to.
No, you get out. You get out of the fucking truck and you get the mud out of the tires. That's what you do.
Well,
and then you put it in gear.
When you get out of the truck, what does the truck have to do?
What are you talking about? If you're stuck in idle, you take the mud out of the tires.
We haven't been stuck in idle. We are freaking heading for the cliff.
How are we heading for a fucking cliff? No, I want to know where this blue-haired SJW fucking apocalypse is coming from, because I want to run towards that shit. Because I don't want to be here no more. I don't want to be here no more. Because I think Donald Trump is going to hit that fucking button faster than the SJWs are going to fucking cause an apocalypse.
Well, you really believe that Donald Trump is going to hit a
nuclear button? Okay, I gotta know. Somebody tell me the fucking evidence, because I keep hearing this and I have yet to see this.
I said it's more probable. It is more probable. Not that it's going to happen. You gotta listen. Open up your ears and listen.
Listen to you, Wolfshot.
I don't give a fuck Vic. Fuck Vic, meow, meow, meow. He fucking hit on my underage girlfriend at a con.
Huh?
Vic McGonagall or whatever the fuck
Vic Mignola.
Yeah, he's a fucking dirtbag piece of shit, and he's getting everything he deserves. Fuck that bitch. I
don't care. Let him hug girls. Let him hit on him.
I'm not even sure who we're talking about.
He's the dude that voiced Broly.
I don't want him hitting on my underage girlfriend. I'll pass.
Why do you have
I don't know.
Girlfriend, Wolfie? Aren't you married?
I was 17 at an anime convention called Anime Mid-Atlantic, and he was a guest. Look it up.
Here's the thing. When it comes to the whole Vic situation, this is the reason I find a lot of the things surrounding him to be suspect. If he did, then okay, that's one thing. But last I checked, giving somebody a hug was not sexual harassment, but apparently now it is.
Well, when he lifts his hand up my ex-girlfriend or my girlfriend at the time's skirt, knowing full well she's 17 and he's 40, whatever, yeah, there's a problem.
Well, if that happened, then I agree with you. But I'm just saying, I don't take people's word for it. I mean, I trust you for the most part.
No, don't take I don't give a fuck. Don't take my word for it. I want everybody to listen. Don't take my word for it. I know a lot of people think that I'm full of shit, some liberal, furry piece of shit, whatever. Look it up for yourself, seriously, and you make your own determination. If you stand with Vic, if you think SJWs are going to be the downfall of this fucking country, good for you. But I ain't going to be in that fucking boat with you.
Hey, you know what? If that happened, then that's one thing. But here's what I will say: when it comes to the NPC crowd, they've definitely done a lot more damage to. Let me think here: video games, tabletop gaming, Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering.
Oh, bring up Last of Us. Tell me how Ellie being a lesbian is the worst thing that ever happened to that video game.
Oh, I couldn't care two shits about that. I really don't give a fuck. If it adds to the character development and it adds to the story, I do not care. And that's how the majority of people feel. It's not about whether or not a character has a certain sexual preference or a certain skin color or a certain kind of affiliation. It really boils down to this. If you have an established franchise, or if you have,
here we go.
Marvel has suffered from this problem. If you have something that's established, it's not that you can't change it or move its story in a specific direction that reflects what the author wants to tell. That's not the issue. The issue is the fact that, to be blunt, a lot of these people that essentially are diversity hires, because that's literally what the company refers to them as, they're just not good at what they do.
Yeah, but what if the story's good? Like, everybody's pissing and moaning about Batwoman, right?
If the story's good, the story's good. Gail Simone's she's done some really good stories, and she's a hardcore SJW. It's not that she's not talented.
Like, everybody's mad about Batwoman, especially with the new CW. It's CW, right? I don't fucking know. CW show that's coming out, and it's got that one dyke in it. Ruby Rose, she's going to be Batwoman.
I will give you a lot of credit in this one regard. We don't know what these movies are going to be like until you see the friggin' movie. All right. I think a lot of people, though, are getting to the point where they're handicapping a movie far too soon. And in fairness, you're right about that, Woolshot. Right. But you also got to understand when people
I
do
like
watch
trashy
the movie.
shit. MC, you know I like trashy shit. That's the other problem.
Well,
and that's my problem. And that's my fucking problem, right? I like shitty shit, you know?
Here's the thing. If the product is good, if it makes sense, that's fine. And you'll find the majority of your fan base is not going to take a shit on you because, identity politics reasons. It's just a lot of the products coming out aren't that good. I mean, let's take Riri Williams, for example. She's not a hero. She would make a much better villain. And honestly, if I saw Iron Man versus Ironheart, make her a female Doctor Doom, that actually would be a really intriguing story arc where Iron Man is essentially what she looks up to, but at the same time wants to take down because reasons. That would actually be a good story arc, and you could still inject your personal view of politics into it, and it wouldn't detract from the story or the characters. You could still do that. The problem is they're so heavy-handed with it, and they're also not creative.
Okay, I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Like
I'm just
Captain
gonna say a
America
lot of
working
these.
for Hydra.
You could even take that storyline and make it good.
Yeah, that storyline could be good. That could be good.
You could. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad idea. It's just they don't know how to execute it. They don't know how to take that storyline and make it good because they're not putting forth the effort to be creative. They're doing it just simply because they want to use it as a fucking sounding board to push a particular narrative, and they don't really care about the fucking
tell a story. Their goal is to push a narrative. That's the
But
problem.
Isn't that entertainment, man? I mean, like
No, that's propaganda. That's propaganda.
That's politics, is what it is.
Entertainment.
That's propaganda.
How long have they been using entertainment as propaganda for? How long?
Oh, no, you can have propaganda in entertainment. That's true. But if your goal is strictly, all right, to preach a political agenda,
What's that one movie?
then it's political and it's not entertainment, and people won't enjoy it.
What's that?
It's not that you can't have. I mean, for crying out loud, ever since people started writing books, they've had underwriting themes to them. Right?
Well,
but the books that are just preaching something to you go into the political pile, and there are people like me, quite frankly, all right, that will read that, right, because that's what they enjoy. But that's a very small segment, all right, of the overall population. Most people, all right, will want to read the story and follow the story, and they get involved with the humanity of the characters and the action of the characters, and that's what they want to see, even if it has some kind of underlying theme. Okay, it's not reading about politics. You see my point?
Yeah, but we've had politics in films since the 1920s. Birth of a Nation is a perfect example. That came out in 1920, and it showed how terrible black people were, and that white women were going to get raped and shit.
Birth of a Nation?
That's not even the point.
I'm not even sure which Birth of the Nation you were looking at, because the one I'm thinking of.
And again, that's the 1920s though. Art imitates life. That is a reflection of the time.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, that's a reflection of the time. That's not the reason that people like me would be complaining about Marvel books as they are now. Like, let's take the example of Jane Foster as Thor.
Well,
if you've read any of those comics, and I own quite a few of them. I highly regret it because they're not worth the fucking $5 I paid for it. But you could take Jane Foster as Thor and do so many different things with it, but it's just fucking lazy.
Yeah, but the majority of people are pissing and moaning that Thor is a woman, when they forget that anyone who can pick up the hammer can be Thor.
Yeah, but I don't think you're listening. I think you're overly listening to them, and you're not hearing the rest of the complaint.
And that's the thing. I've been a massive fucking comic book nerd ever since I was 5 or 6.
So am I.
The majority of people complaining about that are a really small minority. The same way that the people saying, "Oh, we have a female Thor," they're also a very small minority. The majority of people are like, okay, how are you going to do this? Like, this could be interesting. but because they just wanted to make a female Thor. They didn't create a compelling character. They didn't create a compelling story. They didn't give you a decent reason for it. It was just, yeah, Jane Foster's Thor now. It was just garbage. It's just not good. The same way, like, did anybody care that Rey was the main character in Star Wars? No. No one really cared. Like, go back to
sure?
go back to
Sure
a lot
about
of the yeah, I'm 100% positive. Go back to a lot of the reviews and what everybody was saying before The Force Awakens actually came out. Nobody was complaining about the fact that one of the leads, the lead character, was a female. Nobody cared about that. What they cared about is it looked like it didn't look like it was going to really live up to the hype. People were skeptical because you're looking at a franchise that is beloved by a lot of people, and you just passed the torch to Disney. So, yeah, there's going to be some skepticism, especially considering the reception of the prequels. So,
well, let's be honest. The prequels, the story
prequels were garbage too.
Was where you started seeing the slide. All right, people were hoping that it would pick back up when it came under new management.
And after the Force Awakens came out, was anybody complaining about it? Yeah, okay, it's a rehash of A New Hope. But yeah, we get it. You're rebooting the franchise for a new generation. Nobody was complaining about Rey.
There was a lot of complaint about that. There were several.
Yeah.
I mean, there was more complaining than you're indicating. I mean, it wasn't what it wasn't what it became. All right.
Well, it wasn't The Last Jedi.
Right. All right. It wasn't The Last Jedi. The main complaint, though, that I heard about that was one, that they were rebooting it, and two, people were acknowledging, saying, "Well, wait a minute here. It's a reboot. That's one thing, but it looks like you're doing a bad reboot." All right. The storylines, you lifted the story. Okay, fine. But you couldn't even come up and do something even close to being equivalent.
But nobody complained that Rey was a woman. They were complaining that she was a Mary Sue. It had nothing to do with her being a woman.
That was a problem for them, yes. But
I don't know. I didn't have a problem, but hey, whatever. I don't like
personally,
Star Wars.
I enjoyed
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Star Wars.
Personally, I enjoyed The Force Awakens, but you want to know what movie I loved even more? I thought Rogue One was a great film, and that starred a female lead. I liked Rogue One actually a lot. Oh, dude, Rogue One was a fucking great movie. Really dark for the Star Wars universe.
Expanded on that, but hey, whatever.
I'm kind of upset everybody died in the end because I would like to actually see what those characters would have gone to do if they didn't all die. But spoilers.
If Disney didn't fucking didn't tear down all the Star Wars novels and made them non-canonical, which
that
is retarded. But hey, whatever.
Well, I hate this argument that all the fanboys and the neckbeards, they don't like it because whammon. No, we don't like it because you're crap at storytelling. My favorite fucking comic book character is Psylocke. And it's not because she's a fucking hot ass woman. It's because she's a fucking badass.
Yeah.
Or we're gonna you're gonna kick me in the balls about Captain Marvel, right?
No.
Okay, my only complaint is they fucking completely ignored the fact that she started as Kree, or that she was handed down her shit from the Kree. They've completely taken the entire Kree scroll thing out of it, and that's the part I remember because I remember the original Marvel, and they've completely taken that part out because there's going to be a whole personality piece that they aren't going to be able to fucking explain as to why Danvers is nuts.
Well, yeah, because she basically has amnesia, but she's also essentially a galactic Navy SEAL trained killing machine.
She's fucking crazy, dude. Like, I don't know how else to describe her. It's not like she's not a cool character or anything, but she's kind of fucking crazy.
There was that dynamic in the comics. That's true.
Oh, if you go back to the Miss Marvel comics, the two things she does besides being overpowered as shit, because Miss Marvel was overpowered as shit, but she also uses her sexuality as a weapon, the same way that Harley Quinn does. She's a fucking woman, and she doesn't fucking hide it. She's not ashamed of it. And this is what drives me nuts about this sort of approach that they have now. Like, oh, we got to respect the women's. It's like, they don't want women to act like women. They want women to act like men, and they want men to act like women. It's completely fucking turned on its head. It's annoying.
That's a separate dynamic.
Yeah, but then you've got people bitching about Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman, in my opinion, she was Wonder Woman. She was effeminate and beautiful and strong and a god and all this stuff, and people still weren't happy with it because she was Israeli and she didn't have armpit hair. And, and that's
I thought Wonder Woman was great.
That's fucking gay.
The people were making those complaints for the SJW.
I know. I'm saying I don't. Didn't I say at the beginning I don't like extremism, right? Like, you can't have your cake and fuck it too. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with you on that one, 100%. I thought Wonder Woman was an amazing movie.
But
if you want a strong female lead,
but we're gonna piss and moan about her being Israeli and the fact she doesn't have armpit hair and the fact that she wasn't just like, I don't know how to compare, like Furiosa from Mad Max. She wasn't like that.
Well, it's because apparently it's because Gal Gadot didn't check all the boxes.
Doku, hold on a second. Atema, you gonna say something?
Sorry.
I was going to say, however, if it's a pie, apparently you're supposed to fuck it for the movie.
Oh.
I mean, and then you've got shit like that where, like, in film, you can't make a movie like American Pie today.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
You can't have comics like George Carlin or, like, hell, even Don Rickles today. You know what I'm saying?
Don Rickles, they would basically...
or Richard Pryor, even, you know,
even
like
Richard Pryor would be hard for Richard Pryor to
oh hell, even Robin Williams, he was controversial, and he was
I was
like
going to say Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, raw.
Eddie Murphy to a point, but to be honest, Richard Pryor would be hated even more. Robin Williams, because of his style, right, would always have an acceptability standard with it because of how his style was achieved. That
Really, because they banned
boom 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 boom. All right, it doesn't lend toward anger, quite frankly. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to give you guys an example. If
American
I were,
Phoenix, I see you in the chat, by the way. That shit's funny.
If I were to take Jane Foster as Thor, just give me a 6-issue run. Thor gets stabbed by Loki. I forget the name of his spear, but boom, he can't use Mjolnir anymore. Jane Foster, knowing that every time she takes on the power of Thor, and this is from the fucking comic they did, every time she takes on the power of Thor, it slowly kills her and it progresses her cancer. But because nobody else can wield Mjolnir except her, she has to go and fight, do whatever. By the end of the series, she's basically dead, but Thor now has recovered, and he gets the power of Thor back. He gets to pick up Mjolnir again. But Jane Foster fucking dies, and you have Thor sitting there crying at her grave, and he gets to show some of the compassion. Like, okay, you got the big, strong, burly man who's the man's man, but he's still showing some love and compassion. You want to know who would complain about that? The same people that are complaining about fucking Alita Battle Angel.
Dude, I want to see that movie so bad. I love the manga, and I love the anime.
I really want to see it, too. It actually looks pretty fucking good.
I liked Ghost in the Shell. Everybody can kick me in the nuts about that, but I loved Ghost in the Shell. It was a good movie.
Oh, dude, I don't care. Ghost in the Shell is fucking amazing. Dude, the Major is a fucking badass. You want to talk about a strong female character?
Yeah,
the Major is fucking...
I had a problem with the movie versus the anime.
I love
the anime is definitely better, but the movie...
Well, yeah.
Well,
yeah, the anime is definitely better, but the movie, I think, did a really good kind of shot at, I don't know.
There was something about the movie that for me, I just couldn't suspend the belief enough to get into it like I could with the anime.
It's not the worst anime to live action.
Yeah, it's not the worst. No, not at all. Not in the long
No,
run. Dragon Ball Z, you guys.
That trophy goes to Death Note.
I don't know, Dragon Ball Z Evolution or whatever the fuck that was.
We do not speak of Dragon Ball
Z. Okay, we're weebing out here. Let me put something else up for everybody. All right, it's going to be changing the thing because I want to talk about this because it was in Twitter. I got this off of Twitter. All right. and I want to ask you guys, and you can click on my name, or if you can't see it, all right, this graph. Now, what does this? What? There's something that stuck out directly to me, right, when I was looking at this graph. Now, Tema, can you see the graph?
I can't
How
fucking read.
how the hell does everything start at 0?
I can't read.
Oh, they're just saying at this point in time, everything. They're basically saying at a specific point in time, everything was what it cost. All right, it's not. So from a percentage standpoint of revenue, everything starts. I mean, at a specific point in time, and they just go off from there. Right.
Where's the x-axis? What time frame are we looking at? Like,
yeah, I know. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, and that, to be honest, you have what I've seen here, right? You don't have a day or a time period that they're putting it in. All right. I mean, I don't. I'm sure there was one, right? But it hasn't been included. So I just got this from Twitter.
God.
I mean, if I had to take a guess, this is probably starting from 1970.
Okay, so hold on, but before any of that, so everything that does not require some sort of government payout or subsidy for it is still more affordable. But everything the government has gotten involved in when it comes to wages and stuff has gotten less and less affordable.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you take a look at where you have any kind of limited government regulation, you'll notice that those things became cheaper over time or more affordable. Right? Toys, television, computer software, cell phones, clothing, all right, which the government has stepped out of, all right, household furnishing, cars. But if you take a look at the things that the government started interfering with, and it started becoming heavily regulated, food and beverages, okay, housing, the average hourly wages, okay, Medicare, children care, child care, all right, all these are things that the college textbooks, college tuition, hospital service, all of these are things that the government became highly involved in and are heavily regulated. You have things that are dedicated, and when I say government, I'm not talking necessarily federal government, okay? But where the government has really gone hard into getting involved into it, okay, you are seeing the costs become exorbitant as a result.
I will fight you on the cars thing, because no.
Actually, per capita, cars are cheaper than a lot of other things to buy.
Well, yeah.
When it comes to major purchases and their numbers, if you go look at the numbers for a car,
but I think she's talking about the regulations on cars, right?
I'm talking about how cars are exponentially getting more expensive.
Actually, they aren't.
Okay, I'm not. Okay, show me where.
Honestly, well, inflation. Because of inflation, the valuation of the dollar isn't making it any more or less. And based on wages, because we've had wage stagnation, we haven't had wage growth for many decades. The cost of a car, while it looks like it's increasing, it is literally moving at almost the exact same pace as the close to non-existent or at the same pace as inflation. So when it comes to terms, because that's the only thing you're seeing as a wage increase over time right now is inflation. There's no actual wage increase happening, right?
Well, overall, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'm talking in generalities here, right? So you have.
Well, we have to. I mean, this graph is very generic, for the most part.
But cars really have. If you look at a base model affordable sedan from now, it is comparable in price to a base model sedan for what the value of the dollar was in the 70s.
I will disagree with you.
Well okay, so can I break this down a little? Can I break this down real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
So look at cars, household furnishings, and clothing. consider that to be a baseline. Those things aren't necessarily associated with inflation, so to speak. Those are kind of that's kind of your baseline. That's why you see them being flat, because the price is going to fluctuate, because on a small degree, because those are necessities. You're not going to go out and get a job if you're naked. You're not going to be able to live a decent, whether you buy a house or not. A couch is not really going to change that much in price. Cars aren't going to change either. The only reason the price is going to change is due to inflation. If you want to look at inflation, look at the very next one up, housing and food. That is directly tied to inflation. If you look at the average hourly wage, that would indicate to you that inflation is definitely on the uptick. The targeted inflation rate is 2% year over year. So it would explain that it would be sensible that average hourly wage is going to go up, and it's going to be more than what housing and food would be. When you look at the next one above that, when you look at medical services, it would make sense that would be more expensive. Also, that would be indicative of an increasing population. You're not going to have as many doctors as people.
Well, let me ask a question before you go, Tema. Before you make your comment, because Will Schatz, she does work with cars and stuff. All right, from a sales perspective. So I want to ask a question. Is there a trend going on where cars are being held onto longer?
Absolutely.
All right. I think that's the reason you're seeing from an affordability standpoint. That's also being figured into there.
I posted 2 articles as to why new vehicles, the prices are becoming too high.
Right. No, and I read both of them.
Infographics and graphs and shit like that.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Well, go ahead, Tema.
I was seeing stuff that was making the opposite argument, saying that via inflation, the price of a car is approximately the same. Now, granted, I haven't looked at that information since, I don't know, I haven't bothered to look at it in a while, but because it's something I'm totally gonna be looking at. I buy a lot of new cars, so I apologize if I have wrong information and I'm arguing from the wrong position.
Well, from the graph perspective, the reason I think that the affordability remains where it is because people are hanging on to their cars, and cars are lasting longer. So the fact that the new cars are going up means you're not getting the turnover, but the overall affordability from the long-term perspective generally remains the same as a result. It really does change the dynamics in car manufacturing, however, all right, to where you end up with possibly a problem going forward of people not being able to afford the new cars, so therefore the market is going to have to contract to some degree.
Well, and MC, that's exactly what you need to look at when it comes to this graph, because we're not talking about the price. We're talking about affordability. So the one thing you need to look at is average hourly wages. That is the number one key thing that you need to gauge everything else by. Everything else is a price. Wages are what you earn. Affordability is based upon that. So when you look at the very top, hospital services, college textbooks, college tuition, those are at the very top. Compared to how that has gone up, as opposed to average hourly wages, that is a drastic increase. But when you look at something like a car, okay, yeah, a Civic 10 years ago is $10,000. Now it's $15,000. But wages have gone up enough that you can make up for that cost. Look at all the stuff that's gone down.
Right. Well, but it also goes down to your factoring a car, the cost of a car prorated over how many different years. All right.
Well, and again, but you also have to look at the stuff that's gone down as well to understand what's going on.
It becomes a yearly affordability in a ratio now, rather than what a new car would cost, or something that's just on the lot.
Well, and that's why I would really like a time frame for this graph, because if somebody bought a TV like myself 12 years ago, I haven't bought a new TV since, because I barely use the damn thing. So as technology increases, TVs get cheaper, I don't even use the damn TV. Computer monitors are the same thing. LCD screen. Technology increases. I don't need a new car. The car's been paid off. Wages are still going up, but look at the things that are going up compared to the wage. College, medical services, things like that. Things that you can't just buy and hang on to.
That was the other thing that I noticed, is that services seem to be becoming more expensive rather than quote unquote items.
Exactly. And that's because we're a consumer-based economy. So what this trend would suggest is that services have become more expensive, but tangible items haven't really changed that much.
Yep.
The only increase in price you see is because, guess what? The dollar is just simply not as valuable as it was back in the day. And we've been people in the economic circle have been talking about this for fucking decades now. And you could go back 50 years. How much did a fucking cheeseburger cost you? It was a fucking nickel. Now you'd be lucky if you can get a cheeseburger for $1. Oh, and you got to add the tax on top of it too. So there's that.
Well, I mean, the taxes kind of affect everybody. Okay, we've been going a good, couple hours, or close to a couple hours now. I think that this will be a good time to go ahead and stop the stream. This is generally when we stop the streams for Mad Dodge. And I appreciate you guys coming out for the stream. All right. Because obviously Mad Dodge is still a little under the weather. And so I didn't want to leave his channel without his normal stream time. All right. So I asked Jensen to go ahead and help me with this. Jensen, is it okay for you to go ahead and end your stream? But before we do that, let me go through Wolfshot. Do you have a channel again? And are you posting anything or going to be posting anything?
I don't fucking know.
Okay. What about you, Doku? What do you? Time to plug your channel.
Well, Exiled Opinions will be doing the Rotten Tomatoes drinking game tomorrow night. I have no idea what we're going to be going over. And tonight, I will probably be on the Stream of Corruption. That is on Lord Nurgle's channel, where we go over all manner of bullshit that happens on a weekly basis. So if you guys are interested, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, come join us. Say hi.
Okay, what about you, Atema?
You can find me you can find me on my channel, of course, at Atema the Hun, where I do things like shout at YouTube celebrities for no fucking reason, or I read the news and I shout at the news for no freaking reason. And you can also find me weekly on every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, on I Rate Prostate's channel, the Cream Stream. And other than that, you can find me over here once in a while fucking about, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. And I'm MC. Obviously, I have my own channel. You can I do a news stream daily at the 7 Mountain Standard Time. Seeing as I'm in Arizona, it's always going to be Mountain Standard Time, unless for some reason my job takes me away. So that's all that we've had for today. So Jensen, if you want to go ahead and end the stream, I'd appreciate it.
No problem. Before I go, I'd like to thank you all for coming along. It was very educational for me. And thank you for all of those that decided to come along and listen to this fascinating little stream. I wish you all a very good day. Bye.